Welcome back to Joe's Stunner Boxing. You know, when it comes to the really lightweight divisions, let's say from strawweight to super bantamweight, you could be forgiven for thinking that Japan dominates the whole of those divisions. They have 11 champions between strawweight and super bantam, including the undisputed champ at super bantam in Naoya Inoue. But there is one lone wolf who's coming along to take all the glory away from all those terrific Japanese fighters, and that, of course, is Jesse Bam Rodriguez, who looked spectacular in dismantling, beating and beating up and knocking out Juan Francisco Estrada, himself probably a Hall of Fame fighter. In fact, he will make it into the Hall of Fame. Two-weight world champ, held the WBC super flyweight belt, didn't get a look in against Bam Rodriguez, or he did floor him, he did score a flash knockdown, but he'd been on the floor prior to that, and he got knocked out with a single hellacious left hook to the liver from Bam in the 7th round, and that was all she wrote. So Bam looking absolutely spectacular. Bam at 24 is a decade younger than Estrada. 34 once upon a time was considered very, very old for a flyweight or super flyweight. But make no mistake about it, Estrada is not a shot fighter. And anyone who wants to try and be wise after the event and pretend, and that is all they will be doing, is pretending to be a Billy Big Bollocks. You weren't saying that before this fight. You weren't saying that Estrada was a shot fighter. He's not a shot fighter. He just got smashed right through by a really rare talent in Bam Rodriguez, terrific fighter. And Bam himself at 24, when you consider that he's now got wins over Carlos Cuadras, Swissakat Sorungvasai, which was a stoppage over a guy who prior to that had seemed like he was made out of steel, dominated and stopped him, and now he's knocked Estrada flat. This kid, accepting that those three names are past their best, although again by no means shot, although Sorungvasai looked old in that fight, I must be honest, but maybe Bam made him look old. But anyway, the point I'm making is that already at 24, Bam is creating a Hall of Fame resume. He's got those three guys from a previous generation who he's knocked off. Can anyone beat him in the super flyweight division? Can anyone do it? Well, I mentioned the Japanese dominating, for the most part, dominating these lighter weights. And Kazuto Ioka is due to fight Fernando Daniel Martinez in a unification, super flyweight unification, IBF and the WBA. And that's coming up the Saturday coming. So it'll be interesting to see who wins that and how they pontificate on how they would do against Bam. In the case of Martinez, he is 16 wins with 9 KOs, no draws, no defeats. He's 5'2". He's from Argentina. Most of his fights have been in Argentina, although his last 3 have been in the United States. And 2 of those, the first 2, were unanimous decisions over Jerwin Ancajas, who's a very, very good fighter himself. He picked up the IBF title in the first fight, retained it in the second fight, and then in his last fight, he beat an undefeated fighter called Jade Bornea, undefeated in 18 contests, and knocked him out in the 11th round, early in the 11th round. So this guy, yeah, he's a good fighter. He's a proven fighter. I'm not sure how old he is. He didn't look very old, if I remember rightly. I think he's probably about 23, 24. I might be wrong. Sometimes these little guys look younger than they are, but nevertheless, he is, I think we can say he's becoming an established champion. 2 wins over Ancajas and the stoppage over Bornea are very, very good results. And now he's fighting, like I say, over in Japan, Kazuto Ioka. As I said, Ioka is the WBA champ, and Martinez is the IBF champ. That's it, yeah. So Ioka, he's knocking on a bit. He's even older than Estrada. He's 35. And he's been around, as you know, he's been around for a long time. He's got 31 wins with 16 KOs. 2 defeats, both on points, The last one was in 2018 against Donny Nientes, split decision. And then he had Amnat Ruanrong beat him on a split decision back in 2014. So we have to go back to find him being beaten. And he's a very, very good fighter. He's held the, let me get this right, I think it's the IBF flyweight title back in the day. And he's had a couple of stints as a super flyweight champ. And I think he also, going back about a decade, he held one of the light flyweight belts, maybe the WBA light flyweight belt. And actually, come to think of it, he was, if we go way back, like 12 years, I think he was a minimum weight champ as well. And I think he unified, I want to say WBC, WBA or WBC, WBO, something like that. But he's, put it this way, the reason I'm forgetting is A, because I'm fucking old, and B, because at 35, his career goes way, way, way back. You know, he actually turned pro, I think, in 2009 or something, late 2009, 2010. So we're talking about a guy who's had 15, 16 years as a professional fighter, and he's held belts in 4 divisions. So we're talking minimum weight or straw weight, if you prefer, light fly, and super fly, yes. Okay. But at 35, is he there for the taking? Now, like I say, he hasn't been beaten since 2018. Although he did have a majority draw in 2022 against Joshua Franco. And I think that was a unification. That was a superfly unification. Is Martinez going to be a little bit too much for him? It remains to be seen. But at this point in his career, I would say that Bam Rodriguez is too young and too fresh for him. I would certainly pick him to beat Ioka, probably by knockout. And I've got a lot of respect for Ioka. I've got a lot of respect for all these Japanese kids. They're brilliant. But no, I think Bam, over a decade younger, beats Ioka, as great as he's been. It would be another case of, like we saw on Saturday with Estrada. As far as Bam against Martinez is concerned, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'd favour Bam over anyone after Saturday. But Martinez, if he gets through Ioka and he looks impressive doing it in Japan, I certainly think that makes him a viable opponent for Bam. And I think his confidence will go through the roof to be a two belt unified champ, and to take that into a fight with Bam. Yes, he'd be the underdog, but I would make him a live underdog. I remember the Ancajas fights. I have difficulty remembering which fight was which. I've seen them both. What happened in which fight, if you know what I mean. But he would definitely be a handful. He'd be a live dog. Do you know what I mean? Both of those fights, I think he won comfortably, if I remember rightly. The scores were quite wide. There might have been a 116, 112, and that was as close as it got. There was a 118, 110, somewhere along the line. And, we're talking wide cards here. So, yeah, put him in with Bam. Again, Bam would be the favourite. But if Martinez can beat Ioka in Japan, and I think there's a realistic idea, it quite possibly can. I've got a feeling Ioka could be outpointed by Martinez. I have to think about that. I might if I remember, I might do a preview, but it's possible Martinez could beat Ioka, even though he's in Japan. I think that would be quite interesting because he is a much younger, in his prime, undefeated fighter. And we saw what Bam did to Sonny Edwards. Can he do it to Fernando Martinez? Yeah, we'll have to have a look. I think that's a very intriguing fight. I really do. And I'm not saying I want Martinez to beat Ioka, because, like I say, Ioka, I've watched him for a long while. He's had a long career, and I massively respect him. But it would be interesting to see how Bam does against another undefeated, much younger fighter, and he isn't just feasting on the old sort of aging legends, if you know what I mean. So there's that. There's, like I say, so we've had Ioka. We mentioned Ioka, WBA world champ. We've mentioned Martinez. IBF world champ. Let's talk a bit about another Japanese fighter, the WBO champion, Kosei Tanaka. Now, Tanaka is 29. Again, not ancient. He's got 20 wins, 11 KOs, 1 defeat. And the defeat was an 8th round stoppage to Kazuto Ioka. So, you know, we're talking about the old gun, the young gun getting stopped by the old master, Kazuto Ioka. Stopped him in 8 rounds. That was back in 2020. But there's no shame in that. You lose to a great fighter, you get back on the horse, and you do precisely what Tanaka has done, which is he's regrouped. He won a split decision over Sho Ishida. He's a decent Japanese fighter. Excuse me. And from there, he went from strength to strength. He won his WBO title in his last fight. That was against Basuega, Christian Bacasquega, I think his name is. That was in Japan. He unanimously outpointed him in, like I say, in Japan, over 12. And that picked up the WBO title. By the way, when he suffered his only loss to Ioka, that was also for the WBO title. Like I say, stopped in 8 rounds. Since then, rebuilt. When the second chance came along, he took it. And that was earlier this year. That was in February of this year. So he's an informed guy, Kosei Tanaka. Against Bam, would I give him much of a chance? In all honesty, I would greatly favour Bam to beat him. I think the fact that he has been stopped once, even though it was 4 years ago, and to a great fighter, yeah, okay, you can argue it was too much too soon. But then he was 25, and that's not that. I mean, when you consider Bam's 24, when Tanaka lost his only fight, that he was 25, he was a year older than Bam. People mature at different rates, of course. But no, I would strongly favour Bam to beat Tanaka. And I rate Tanaka. I mean, when I say that I would favour Bam over these guys, it's not that I don't rate these guys. I do rate them. I'm just very, very high on Bam Rodriguez at the moment. I've always been a show me guy. You think you're the best, you got to go out and prove it. And I really feel that he's doing that. He's doing that. So I would pick him to beat Tanaka. I wonder if his next fight could be against Tanaka, and if he wins that, you could then have the winner of that fight facing the winner of Ioka and Martinez. That would be so you got a couple of semi-finals going on. But I really like Tanaka, but no, I would definitely pick Bam to beat him. Definitely. So those are the champions. Is there anything stopping Bam from becoming undisputed? Well, the fighters I've mentioned are obviously major stumbling blocks, but if you put a gun to my head and those fights were to be made, do I think Bam would end up as the undisputed champion? Yes, I do. I think he beats all of the above that I've mentioned. As marvellous a fight, as marvellous fighters as they are, I think Bam beats a lot of them, to be honest with you. I think he will be the last man standing. So, yeah. And there are other fighters. There's Julio Cesar Martinez, who's pissed hot, so he's out for a little while. Andrew Maloney's still floating around. There's the Estrada rematch, which is there was a rematch clause for the first fight. I think Bam wins that as well. I think he beats all of them, to be honest with you. I don't really see anyone who can beat him. You know, in the lower echelons, you've got RG Cortez, Christopher Rosales, Nah, they don't beat Bam. I think Bam, if he wants to stick at 115, may well end up as the undisputed champ. That's my opinion. So what do you think? How good do you think Bam is? Do you see any of the people I've mentioned beating him? Let me know your opinions. Comments below, as always. Please, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. That would be a big help to us. And hit the like button as well if you like the video. I want to hear your opinions, and I want to hear why you think fighter A beats fighter B. Let's get some sort of interesting discussion going. But come on, we all got to agree this kid's good, right? Bam Rodriguez, this kid's really, really good. All right, I'm looking forward to hearing what you got to say, reading what you got to say, and I'll answer as many comments as I possibly can. And yeah, thank you very much for your time as always, and bye for now.